I was 6 months pregnant when I found out my husband and my best friend were in love. I want you to imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning. Your 3-year-old is sick, your husband is sleeping in, you're 6 months pregnant. Your father is dying, and you reach over to turn off your husband's alarm, and you see a text on his lock screen. It's from your best friend. I'm assuming since there's no angry pregnant lady at my door, you haven't told her about us yet. My name is Claire, and that was the morning my entire life collapsed in a single sentence. Because in that moment, I didn't just realize my husband was cheating. I realized my best friend had been standing next to me this whole time, smiling while I drowned. Let me tell you about the life I thought I had before that Tuesday. I met my husband Daniel when I was 19. He was 22. We dated 4 years before we got married. We have two kids, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I was 6 months pregnant with our third. By any normal measure, we were happy. Daniel was kind, gentle, the type of husband who could tell you were having a hard day without you saying a word, the type of father who got on the floor and played with the kids like it was the best part of his day. I never had a reason to doubt him. Not once. And then there was Lily. Lily wasn't just my best friend. Lily was family. We'd been friends since we were in diapers. Our moms grew up together. And when my mother died when I was 12, Lily's mom held me like she was her own daughter. We were the kind of friends people believe in, the kind you think is unbreakable. And that's why what she did didn't make sense at first. It felt impossible. But before I tell you what I found on that phone, you need to understand what was already breaking me long before the betrayal. My father is not just my dad. He's my person, my only person from my original family. 2 years ago, he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. 5 months before that Tuesday morning, the doctor pulled us aside and said words I still hear in my sleep. Months, not years. Since then, he's been getting worse. There are days now when he looks at the dog he gave me when I was 21st and says with genuine wonder, "What a beautiful dog. Where did you get her?" He doesn't remember. And I was losing him slowly, piece by piece, every single day. Daniel had been my rock through all of it. He held my hand, he helped with the kids, he encouraged me to quit my job so I could spend more time with my dad. He told me not to worry, that between the two of them, everything would be fine. And I believed him. I quit my job, I was 6 months pregnant, and he was in love with my best friend. Tuesday morning. My toddler is sick, Daniel's alarm is going off, I reach over to silence it, and his phone lights up in my hand. And there it is, that message from Lily. I'm assuming since there's no angry pregnant lady at my door, you haven't told her about us yet. Daniel was still asleep, completely still, breathing slowly, like a man with nothing on his conscience. I took his phone and walked out of the room. I sat on the hallway floor and I read everything. Not one text, everything. Months of messages. Months. While I was at my father's bedside, while I was raising our children, while I was carrying his baby, while I was falling apart and trusting him to catch me. He was with her. And she had known every detail of my grief and used it like background music for their relationship. I sat there for 2 hours. My sick toddler was still in the next room, and the strangest part is, I didn't cry. I felt absolutely nothing, just this cold clarity. Because when your brain finally accepts the truth, your body goes quiet. I knew exactly what I had to do, but I didn't scream. I didn't confront Daniel that morning. I didn't call Lily. I put his phone back. I went and took care of my sick child. I made breakfast. I smiled when Daniel came downstairs. And then I started moving in the shadows. First, I called my OB and got a same-day appointment. I needed to be tested for everything because I was 6 months pregnant and I was not risking my baby on Daniel's secret life. Most results came back negative, A few would take 2 weeks. I waited. Second, I called a lawyer. I gathered everything: bank records, investment accounts, documents, the wills my mother and father had set up, the financial plans for our children. Daniel kept his papers in a locked box in his office. I found the key. I brought it all to my lawyer. She told me I had more protection than she expected. She said we could start divorce proceedings immediately. And I told her something simple: do it right. Then I made the call that mattered most. I called Daniel's mother, Ruth. Here's what I didn't expect. I wasn't alone. Ruth told me she'd suspected something was wrong. She didn't know what, but she knew her son. And when I told her what I found, she went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What do you need from me?" She handed me her will, hers and her husband's, to make sure I was protected. Her own son's mother. She chose me. Then I called Lily's mother, Angie. That call felt like losing a second mother, because Angie had loved me my whole life. When I told her that her daughter was sleeping with my husband while I was pregnant, while my father was dying, Angie cried. Then she stopped crying, and her voice changed. She told me she was going to handle it. And that's when I learned something. Angie is not someone you want as an enemy. She organized a meeting. Daniel's parents, her husband Bob, Daniel, Lily, all in one room. And Angie prepared a slideshow, an actual, organized slideshow of the texts. Every message she could document: dates, evidence, timestamps. I wasn't there. I had already packed what I needed for me and my kids and driven to my father's cabin while Daniel was at work. But I heard what happened. When the slideshow ended, Daniel lunged at Lily across the table. Joe had to physically hold him back. Daniel screamed at her, saying she ruined everything, that she'd pay for this. And Lily sat there crying, begging her parents to forgive her. Her father, Bob, looked at her, his little girl, and said he would never forgive her, that she was no daughter of his, that he hadn't raised her to be this kind of person. Then Angie and Bob cut her off. Financially. Completely. And here's the detail that hit like a second betrayal. Lily was in the middle of her own divorce, and her parents had been paying her legal fees. Not anymore. Daniel came home to find half the house empty. He lost it. He screamed, threw things, put holes in the walls, and when he realized we weren't there, he drove to my father's house, the place he assumed I'd run to. We weren't there, but Daniel still showed up like a man who thought he owned my life. He took a baseball bat to my father's front door. A neighbor called the police. Daniel was arrested, and his own parents refused to bail him out. Now, here's the part I'm not proud of, but I'm not ashamed either. My lawyer said the divorce papers would be ready in 30 days. But Daniel didn't know that, and I asked Ruth and Angie not to tell him anything yet. I wanted him to sit in the gray area. I wanted him to feel uncertainty, to taste for a few weeks what it's like to not know what's happening in your own life. The way I hadn't known, the way I had trusted completely and been completely wrong. His texts were whiplash, begging, then threatening, then begging again. At one point, he threatened to accuse me of kidnapping our own children, and buried inside one of those threats, he slipped. He told me Lily wasn't the only one. I screenshotted it and sent it to my lawyer. Then something happened I didn't expect. I posted the story anonymously online, fake names, just to process, just to put the pain somewhere. And someone showed up in the comments. Someone furious, someone whose grammar fell apart with rage. She called me jealous, obsessed, said Daniel never loved me, said I was the reason everything fell apart. And she used real names. She exposed herself. I responded once. One message. You told me to break up with him when I was 19. You were already engaged to someone else then. You never told me why. If you had, I would have never married him, and you would have been cut out of my life years ago. I used fake names to protect your identity, but if you want to announce yourself to the world, that's your choice, not mine. She never replied again. Eventually, Daniel found the post. He asked me directly if I was filing for divorce. I said yes. He apologized, asked if there was any chance. I said no. We agreed he could see the kids, supervised for now, because after the bat, the arrest, the holes in the walls, my lawyer is going for full custody, and she says we have a strong case. My father is in the hospital now, with no release date in sight. I sit with him and hold his hand. Sometimes he knows who I am, sometimes he doesn't. And I love him exactly the same either way. My kids are adjusting. My oldest made the traveling soccer team, the baby's healthy, and Lily's brother, the one who's been helping us settle, the one who's been sleeping on the couch to make sure Daniel doesn't show up, told me one night, after the kids were asleep, that he's had feelings for me since we were teenagers. He told me not to respond. He said he understood it wasn't the time and wouldn't be for a while. He just needed to tell the truth. And after everything I'd lived through, truth felt like the rarest thing in the world. People ask me how I didn't see it coming. Here's the honest answer. I didn't see it because there was nothing to see. No late nights, no cold shoulder, no obvious red flags. If anything, and this is the cruel part, he was kinder than ever, more attentive, more loving. People think betrayal always leaves a trail. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones standing right next to you, smiling. But here's what I know. I watched my father love my mother for 12 years. I watched him choose her every single day, right up until the day she was gone. And after she was gone, he never moved on. He loved her until he forgot her name. That's what love looks like. And I refuse, completely refuse, to accept anything less than that. Not for myself, and not for my children. So I want to ask you something. Not about Daniel, not about Lily, about you. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that the betrayal didn't even register at first? Have you ever sat on the floor with someone else's phone in your hands and felt that strange, cold nothing? I'll read you in the comments. And if this story hit you, if you've ever been promised it's complicated and later found out it was a double life, stay here. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to see the truth today. Because here, one story always leads to another.